And our guest on Absolutely Famous today is a man who's not only enjoyed a very interesting and high-achieving sporting career, but he's also served in the New Zealand Defence Forces for 30 years, and in fact just recently was presented with an award for his 30 years of outstanding service. Rana Stevens, welcome mate, born and raised in Kaikoura, schooled in Blenheim. Is that how we go?
Thank you, John, for that introduction. Yeah, that's correct. I, as you said, born and bred in Kaikoura. Our whānau shifted to Blenheim, was schooled at Mayfield School, and then we shifted to Spring Creek, schooled in Spring Creek, through to Bahawley, and then into Marlborough Boys College.
Yeah, wonderful. You've got. I remember watching you play many times. Being a sports reporter at the Marlborough Express, I was around the rugby grounds every week, and always regularly used to watch yourself and your teammates at Marlborough Boys College in the first 15 there, and at Moteri, and you're an outstanding player then. And tell us a bit about your career. You played for the Marlborough representatives, the combined services New Zealand team, and just give us a little background about your sporting achievements, Rana, rugby-wise, because there are many.
Yeah, as I said, I'll try to keep this brief, John.
Yeah, couple of highlights. What would say 2 or 3 highlights be for you?
Making the South Island secondary schools.
Yeah.
For all the years, I haven't got no papers in front of me, but I'm thinking it was 92. I think it was 1992. The reason I do remember that is I got injured on a game at Lansdowne Park, nearly broke my neck, got carted off, and I may have missed it, but a month later I recovered and made that team. There was another lad from Kaikoura that was in the trials, Robbie Ford. So
yep.
Brian Ford, there were 3 of those boys. And I thought he's one of the best open side flankers around going at that time. Myself.
Yeah.
It's Robbie Ford. Myself. I think Anton might have been injured as well.
Yeah.
I was lucky enough to make that side. And there were the likes of Jeff Wilson and Daryl Gibson was playing outside me. So yeah, that was pretty cool.
That's a pretty handy side. You mentioned Anton. Of course, Anton Oliver, who went on to become a great All Black and an All Black captain. You played in the first 15 with him, and back in those days he was a barnstorming number 8.
I suppose if I could jump back a few years before that, we used to play a power.
Yeah.
And he'd be at 5.
Second 5, was he?
Second 5 centre, yeah. I remember that.
Yeah.
Because I was X, and that was quite challenging. It was quite good. If you didn't have your tackle technique right, yeah, you sort of come off second best. But yeah, well, we sort of made the Marlborough NPC side together.
That's right.
And again, if I can name drop here, there was Anton, Ben Clark,
yep.
Another really good Opawa Marlborough Boys College player. Got on really well with those guys. You know, it was a love-hate relationship. Mo Tere Opawa.
Yeah. Of course, Ben Clark's dad, Phil, was an All Black in 1967.
That's right. Yeah, I'm a bit of a rugby nerd, John. So yeah, I did. Yeah, there was Mr. Clark, as I called him, Phil Clark, and Ford.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But yeah, we made the NPC side. I think they got a run on. I was like a replacement, I think. Yeah, by memory. And we played Nelson Bays at Trafalgar. Yeah,
fantastic.
They specifically because my grandmother come along, and Army wasn't even in the New Zealand Army wasn't even in the frame then at that time.
Yeah.
Thought I'd been a farmhand out at Spring Creek, down at Jill and Terry Swass's, doing that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Played my rugby. I was training and playing rugby 6 days a week.
Yeah.
Loved it.
Well, you're an outstanding player, and of course you've got great pedigree in your family. Your mum, Amelia, was Amelia McDonald, and of course there's so many famous McDonalds from the Marlborough era, headed by Leon, of course, and Jack Hoani McDonald way back in the day, one of the greatest ever New Zealand sportsmen. So obviously you were destined to succeed, really, weren't you?
Oh, I'm not too sure. No, there's no sort of pressure around it when I was playing.
No.
It was just, I heard that cliche of, have fun, play with your mates, and I used to do that.
Yeah.
I was that kid that was sort of take lollies along to training, and one of my first coaches, Mr. Graham Spencer.
Yeah.
back at Motiri, and Mr. John Mason.
Awesome.
Hamish Mason, and we played a lot together in that
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
Matt Sinclair, Tony Roach, those sort of guys that I grew up with as coaches at Motiri, and I know they instilled a lot of good habits at an early age at Motiri.
Yeah.
It was always about actually have fun with your mates. It was almost about winning.
Yeah. Yeah, that helps.
Yeah.
And of course, you were in a Motiri team. I think it was about 93. They went through the season almost unbeaten, and I think just about every grade won the title.
Yeah, I've got a centenary book somewhere.
That was the year, I think, if my memory serves me right.
Yeah, 1993. I think the Motiri club done really, really well. I was fortunate enough I played in 92, but I remember Waitowi Motiri final 19 all on Lansdowne, and I was sort of sitting on the bench. I think I was only maybe 17, I think.
Yeah.
16, 17. And then I got to play the next year with Tamaha McDonald's father was the coach, Tangi.
Tangi, that's right, great man.
And he got us really, really fit.
And Tamaha would have been playing then?
Tamaha, yeah, well, it was quite strange for me at my age then at school. You know, I'd go to school and then I'd play rugby on the weekends with their fathers. It was quite a different dynamic that I sort of had to grow up pretty quickly.
Yeah, you did too, because you were very young when you played senior rugby.
I think back then it was sort of younger, but these days there's a lot of 15, 16, 17-year-olds playing Premier Rugby, and I'm sort of blown away by that. And I look and go, gosh, you're a bit young.
Yeah.
Think, yeah, sort of the same boat. But I was playing along the sides of Kenneth Hart, Johnny Rouse.
Yeah.
And again, one of the best flankers around going, I thought, was Brett Woolley.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Mason Robinson. Shout out to Mason.
Nice.
Him around.
Great man, isn't he?
He was like the number 10 at Motiri there, and I come through at that stage.
Yeah. A lot of fun, I bet. And you've had a great rugby career in the New Zealand Defence Forces too. Just run us through a couple of the highlights there, Rana.
Crikey, yeah, I suppose the way I joined the army, I played one game NPC for Marlborough, and the captain of Nelson Bays that day was Murray Henderson, a sergeant in the New Zealand Army.
Yep, former Canterbury player.
Yeah, that's right. Canterbury, Manawatu, Nelson Bays.
Yep.
And he approached me, I'm sure it was after the game, at the aftermatch, and was talking potentially joining the forces, New Zealand Army specifically, to pretty much play rugby and get paid for it. And I discussed this with my mother and father, and they just said, look, it's your choice, and if you want to do that, I had their blessing. So I signed a contract, basically. Signed my life away, and ended up on Wairua about might have been a couple of weeks later, but I was almost down to play Samoa. So there's a funny story there as well. I was lined up in the barracks, Stevens is all you get called up there in Wairu.
Yeah.
They'd call a corridor, we'd move into the corridor, everyone shoulder to shoulder at attention. And the platoon commander at that stage, the officer, was like, Stevens, step forward. So, crikey, what's happening here?
Whoops.
I didn't even know. And he was like, I see on your admission into the army, you play rugby for Marlborough. That's correct, sir. I said they played Samoa yesterday.
Yeah.
Yes, sir, that's right. Do you know the score? No, not at all. How would I know? There was no communications or devices back then. And I'd heard that they'd lost by quite a substantial amount back then.
About 127-0, I think it was.
Something like that,
yeah.
John. So it was sort of, back then it was like, you step forward, take a bit of the mickey and step back, carry on with your day.
Brilliant.
There was one part of me going, man, I wish I had played that game.
Yeah, it was a great Samoa. Probably the greatest Western Samoan team of all time, that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Darren and the like, and some big boys on the wings too.
Yeah. Brian Williams, coach, he was a great man. He still is, of course. Yeah. So you played for you played a lot of years for the New Zealand Defence Rugby, and that must have been a lot of fun too, travelling around different places.
That's correct, yeah. In the forces, there's that many units and battalions, and obviously a lot of rugby teams. So the battalion might have Alpha Company, Bravo Company, Delta Company, and Log Company. And every company will have their own rugby side and their own strut. Yet they're all one battalion. There is a tournament we play in Burnham called the McNutt Teams. And that's, one of our fellow soldiers passed away.
Yep.
I won't go too further into that, but and there's always a yearly rugby teams challenge, and that's some of the toughest rugby I've ever played, and we had a team of chefs and stewards in the logistics corps, Royal New Zealand Kura Transport and the Royal New Zealand Army Logistic Regiment, as it's named now. And that would be just, full of chefs and stewards, but we'd play the rugby and then have to go back to work,
Yeah.
So but that was some of the toughest rugby I've played against some really, really good players. Some Anzac teams, when we combined with Australia.
Yeah.
And we play other teams. So I think there was a team from Russia at that stage in the 90s that we played in Burnham. There's been travelling ships that come into New Zealand, or an Air Force that will come in, and they actually like putting themselves up against the army sides, and we do pretty well.
Good stuff. And of course, cricket was another passion of yours, and you got to umpire by a series of chances, T20 international cricket. Tell us how that came about. That's an awesome achievement.
Yeah, I thought my cricketing career had sort of finished a few years ago, John. But I was lucky enough to be selected to go over to Suva, Fiji, only the start of this year. I was selected to actually play for an Anzac team, Australian brothers and sisters. They had two teams. They had a men's team and a women's team, fully fledged, and they were involved in the Pacific Island Challenge Cup. So that involved Samoa, Fiji, Vanuatu, Papua New Guinea. So the 4 countries playing an ICC tournament. And I think because Australia provided the funding and the sponsorship, they were allowed to put a team in. And so they sort of branched that out to New Zealand, and we made an Anzac team. And yeah, that was fantastic. So I would have played a T20 international cricket team or debut, but that didn't work out in the end because they were short of officials when we got there. And yeah, they asked who was umpired before, and I'd done the level 2 qualification, I think it was. So I put my hand up, and I ended up umpiring instead, and I really enjoyed it. I would love to play, but
yeah,
I had best seat in the house, umpiring.
Fantastic. Oh, what a great thrill for you. And of course, you've had a marvellous career. Just run us through a bit about, you told us how it started. You started at Woodburn, did you, based in Blenheim?
Well, I signed the line in Blenheim, done my fitness test, passed the test, and I ended up in Wairu in 6th of July 1993 as a recruit. Passed recruit course, and then you go to your unit, and my unit was in Trentham. It was a really awesome day. It was snowing, and all my whānau were there at my march out.
Brilliant.
You got to see me maybe for about 10 minutes, and then we were on buses, and we were gone. That was quite sad. I was really sorry, Mum and Dad, I'm out of here now. So, yeah. And so they tracked the bus down to Wellington, to Trentham, where I was posted, and seen me again, and we got to spend a bit more time together. And then they come back home to Blenheim, and I started my career in Trentham as a chef.
Fantastic. And what is your specific role now, Rana, in the Defence Force?
Right, so if I step back, I went, chefing. I'd always been asked or approached to go to PTIs, physical training instructing.
Yep.
I just held off because the chefing family's like no one else, I think. really, really close-knit unit, some good qualifications. So I ended up, I passed my London City and Guilds Part 2 qualified chef, and I hope I've passed those skills on to my children.
Fantastic. Best thing you can do is learn to cook properly.
Yeah. But even though I go to the marae still these days, and my aunties and uncles, they sort of own that domain, and I'm just a potato peeler, and I can do that really well. So, yeah, I just listen. But yeah, as a chef, and then went into the NZA PTC, the New Zealand Army Physical Training Corps, and I had to come to Woodburn to do that course, 9-month course, and even then you're not guaranteed, I suppose, to pass it after you actually do it. So I was really stoked to pass those selections, PTI selections, and some really hard days. I wasn't the best swimmer. I loved rugby and cricket, and thought I was not too bad a darts player as well. But yeah, the swimming, I left that to my cousins and my whānau, the hunters and gatherers. But my most prized award or medal that I think I do have is my bronze medallion for swimming, and I'll put that out there to the world right now.
Fantastic. Good on you.
But I got there.
Good on you. Well done. And the that beautiful Maori sash around your shoulder there, what's the significance of that?
This is awarded to non-commissioned. So we have non-commissioned soldiers. So you have your non-commissioned soldiers, your younger ranks, lance corporals, corporals, etc., sergeants, up through the senior NCOs, senior non-commissioned officer ranks, up to warrant officer class 1. Then you have your commissioned ranks, your officers, your second lieutenants, captains, majors, lieutenant colonels, that type of branch. So I'm on the non-commissioned side, working towards warrant officer class 1. And when you get to the rank of sergeant, you have a award ceremony at the Tūmatoenga Marae in Waiuru, and you're presented your senior NCO sash. And that just, it brings everyone together at that rank level for further training and further higher things on towards your warrant officer class 2 and warrant officer class 1 ranks.
That's fantastic. Great achievement.
Yeah.
Great achievement.
Yeah. Very special.
Yeah, absolutely. Rana, it's been wonderful to chat, mate, and so good to catch up with you again. I still remember you being an outstanding rugby player. Obviously, you've carried that on in your working life as well with the Defence Forces, and once again, congratulations on everything you've achieved.